Chapter 17. In his dreams that night, Vajak was back in Mesopotamia. The date palms swayed in the warm breeze, and the cinnamon smell of cooking filled the air. He looked down at the river, where the moon and the stars glimmered, so big and bright he could almost bite them. "The river is called the Tigris," said Jalal. "One day I will show you more of the Tigris, for it can be teaching you so much. But tonight we must practice the fourth skill, slow time." The old cat seemed to shimmer for a moment. Vajak blinked and the shimmering stopped. "What was that?" "Slow time," said Jalal. "I can move faster than you can see." Slow time. Slow time. Vajak's eyes widened. Slow time was a skill the elder Paul had talked of. Slow time, moving circles and shadow walking. "Teach me, Jalal." "Slow time begins with breathing," explained his ancestor. "So, first of all, you must learn to breathe. Count your breaths. In, out, in, out. You see? You breathe fast and shallow like most cats. Breathe more deeply like that. Yes, use the whole of your lungs. Good. Now count. In, 2, 3. Out, 2, 3. In, 2, 3. Out, 2, 3. They sat by the rippling Tigris, breathing slower and slower. "Slower," said Jalal. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Slow the stream of your thoughts. Once you're in slow time, everything will seem to slow down around you. But you will be fast. You will be faster than anything. Vajak looked up at the Mesopotamian sky. He could see the starlight bending across vast distances of space and time. A strange energy pulsed through him. His body felt light, like the light itself. "The slower you go, the faster you are," said Jalal. "You feel it? You slow yourself down." The energy throbbed in Vajak's belly. Jalal's voice sounded like it was stretching, melting, radiating in every direction. "Do not be alarmed. This is slow time. Now, practice the skill." Chapter 18. "I'm starving," grumbled Tam, late the next night, back in their alleys. The three of them sat on a high brick wall together, thinking about food. "My belly's shrinking, I can feel it." "Me too," said Vajak. "That mouse was good, but it was only a mouse." "You're right," said Holly. "This is getting serious. It's time for drastic action, and I've got a plan." She looked Vajak up and down. "First of all, though, you've got to look normal. Tell me, Mr. Paul, you ever planning to clean yourself?" Vajak shook his head. He was outside. He didn't have to wash. "At home, Mother was always washing me. I hated it." "You're not at home now." "Here she goes," sighed Tam. "I don't have to do anything I don't like," said Vajak. "You can do what you want," agreed Holly. "But look at you. The people will notice. They'll think you're wild and they'll take you away." Vajak inspected his coat. She was right. He was filthy. The fine silver blue fur was completely caked with grime. "I like it," he said, rather pleased with himself. "Plus," she added, "you stink." He didn't respond. "I'm sorry, but you really do." Vajak looked to Tam, but even she was silent this time. Okay, he grumbled, reluctantly licking his paws. "You sound just like Mother sometimes." He stopped after a few licks. "Is that better?" Holly looked him calmly in the eye. "I'm not saying this to annoy you. I'm saying it because it's dangerous to look so dirty. You'll draw attention to us all and you'll ruin my plan. Now do it properly or I'm off." Vajak snorted. He resumed his cleaning. "If you're a blue whatever it is, you should be proud of how you look," she coaxed. "We are the noblest of cats," he muttered through a mouthful of mud. But the old boast rang hollow in the city. Would any of his family rescue a stranger? The elder Paul, perhaps, but not the rest. So, who was more noble, the blue or this spiky street cat who'd saved his life? The question bothered him. It turned everything he believed on its head. So he pushed it out of his mind and concentrated on his cleaning. "All right," said Holly at last, "that'll do." Varjak's fur was a dull grey colour. It looked very ordinary. It didn't look like the coat of a Mesopotamian blue anymore, and he liked it that way. "Now, the collar," she said. "You can't be a street cat with a collar. Come here." Now this was more like it. He'd always hated that thing around his neck. Holly gnawed at the collar. He was vulnerable, balanced on top of the wall with her sharp teeth just a bite away from his throat. But he trusted Holly. She'd rescued him, and she was his friend. There, she moved back. Varjak wiggled his shoulders, and he hated the collar, and it fluttered down. It fell through the bars of a metal grill and disappeared into the sewers beneath the city. Now he was just another street cat with no ties, no family, and no home. "Good," said Holly. "You're one of us. If we run into them, that's what you say." "Run into who?" said Varjak, though he knew the answer already. He grinned. "Not that big, bad Sal. Please," cried Tam, "you don't know what you're saying." "This isn't a joke," said Holly. She sounded serious. Varjak stopped grinning. "We have to pass near her territory to get to where we're going. Remember what Ginger did to you? These cats are worse. Much worse." They set off silently, each in their own thoughts. Holly led them through the back streets, always taking the ways that were quiet and hidden. But the light and noise grew stronger the further they went. The rumbling of the city was louder, harsher. Soon they couldn't avoid the dirty orange glare of the streetlights. They were in the open now, coming up to a crossroads. Holly's fur prickled up fast. "Hide!" she hissed. They pressed themselves back into the alley, just in time to see a column of cats patrolling the other side of the crossroads. Varjak's insides knotted as he saw them, and his cheeks burned where Ginger had slashed him. Holly was right. They looked much worse than the cat who'd nearly killed them. There were 7 of them. They swaggered and strutted on the sidewalk as if they owned the whole world. Other cats got out of their way, scurrying aside as they approached. At the head of the column was a brawny Tom with stripy fur. Varjak caught a glimpse of his face. It was covered in scars. "That's Razor," whispered Tam. "One of her lieutenants." The 3 of them crouched silently in their hiding place, watching and waiting until the patrol had passed. "Okay," said Holly at last. "It's clear now. Let's move before they come back." "This crossroads is the boundary," Tam told Varjak as they left the safety of the alley. "Don't ever cross it." "I won't," he said. There were no shadowy alleys where Holly took them. Instead, there were tall, white buildings arranged in a square. In its centre was a water fountain and a huge stone column pointing up at the sky. Around the column's base, there were 4 statues, one at each corner. There were statues of lions made of gleaming bronze. They were giants. Each paw was the size of a man. They had shaggy, wild manes around their heads, proud, free, fearless faces. They were so powerful, so magnificent, so sure of themselves. "That's what we should be," whispered Tam. "That's what we could be," said Varjak. "They're great." They sat there for a while, just looking at the statues. "We can only come here late at night," said Holly. "During the day it's too crowded. People, cars, dogs, but at least it's neutral ground. The gangs leave it alone, which means they always leave those birds alone." Varjak looked again. He was so thrilled by the statues he'd hardly noticed that the square was swarming with pigeons. Dozens of them strutted about beneath the moonlight, and more were coming in all the time. The air pulsed with their trilling and cooing. "So tell me, Mr. Paul," said Holly, "how exactly would you hunt one?" "What do you mean?" said Varjak, suddenly suspicious. Was she making fun of him again? He'd never tried to hunt a bird. It seemed too difficult. "I mean, go and get one of those pigeons." It sounded like a challenge. He searched her mustard eyes. She didn't look like she was making fun of him. She meant it. "All right," he said. "I will." "Holly," said Tam, "that's not fair. Don't take any notice of her, Varjak. She's being mean again." "I want to do it," he said, still looking into Holly's eyes. She smiled. Varjak slunk into the square. He selected a bird and turned all his awareness onto it. He observed it with his eyes, ears, and whiskers. Nothing it did could surprise him now. He and it were one. He crept towards the pigeon, stealthy as Jalal himself. In the whole world there was nothing but him and his prey. Varjak sprang, and 100 wings came at him, 100 claws curved out, 100 beaks cawed in chaos. Panic! Varjak fled from the flock. He hadn't expected anything so fierce. His fur ruffled and his tail trembled. He hid behind Holly and Tam and watched the birds settle down from a safe distance. "Varjak!" cried Tam. "Are you okay?" He shook his head. "I told you, Holly, no one could do that." "Exactly," said Holly. "That's exactly what happens to me every time. That's why even the gangs don't bother with this place. But I always think if we could just work out how to catch the birds, we'd never go hungry again." "It's impossible," panted Varjak. His pulse was still pounding. "Impossible." "For one cat, yes," said Holly. "And yes, we usually hunt alone. But imagine 3 of us hunting together. It could work. Well, that's the plan. What do you think?" "Yes," said Varjak Paw. "I don't like the sound of this," said Tam. She buried her head in her paws and curled up to sleep. "Wake me up when it's time to go home."